Good evening. Welcome to our live broadcast, October 19th, 2015. Continuing on with the Dhammapada. So we'll do that first. Test. Hello and welcome back to our study of the Dhammapada. Today we continue on with verse number 93, which reads as follows. Yasasawa parikina ahare cha anisito sunyato animito cha vimoko yasa gocharo akasewa sakuntanang padang tassa duranayang, which means yasasawa parikina means one whose asawas is the taints. It's one way of talking about defilements. So one whose mental defilements are completely cut off, who isn't dependent on food, who is independent in regards to food. Again, this is a verse about food. Sunyato animito cha vimoko yasa gocharo, same as yesterday. For such a person, or for who, it actually isn't saying what isn't exactly what I said. It's yasa gocharo. So apart from being unattached to food, they also dwell in emptiness, the liberation through emptiness and the liberation through signlessness. Such a person, akase was sakuntanang, such a person just like a bird in the sky. It's hard to know their path. Padang tassa duranayang. So yesterday it was hard to know their gati, which means their destination. But here it's padang, which means their path. So a bird in the sky, you can't see where it's going. There's no sign that it's going here or going there, or where it's gone, right? You can't follow it. You can't track a bird in the sky. In the same way, you can't track a person who is free, who has attained to freedom from suffering, attained to liberation. So that's the story. Again, that's the verse. Again, it's a very short story. The story here is about Anuruddha. It's an interesting story, one that I often think of. In that, in the ideal for a Buddhist monk is to search for robes in the garbage. Now, you don't find too much cloth, cotton cloth, in the garbage anymore. It's probably actually pretty difficult in most places, even in Asia, to find cotton cloth or any kind of cloth that could be useful to make a robe that anyone's thrown out. I mean, stained isn't a problem. It's just to find a piece of cloth or enough pieces of cloth, because unless you're going to make a robe out of plastic bags, our garbage has changed to the point where it's hard. But this was the thing. So Anuruddha, his robes got worn out, and he was wandering around looking for cloth to make new robes. And so he was going from one rubbish heap to another, wandering through the city of Veluwana, the city of Rajagaha. And it turns out that there was an ex-wife of his. His ex-wife decided that, or found out about this, and made a determination in her mind to get him some robes. Now you might ask, how did Anuruddha have an ex-wife? If you don't know much about Anuruddha, you might not ask, but if you know anything about Anuruddha, you'll know he ordained when he was quite young. All the other Sakyan, he's a relative of the Buddha, a cousin, I think, and all the other Sakyan princes were becoming monks, except for Anuruddha and his older brother, Mahanama. And so Mahanama came to Anuruddha and said, look, everybody else is ordaining. Every other family in our clan is sending somebody out to ordain. So our family should have someone as a monk as well, just so we don't, just to for the glory, or just for the goodness of our family. And Mahanama thought this was important. And so he said, so either you or I should become a monk, and the other one will stay and become a rich householder and a businessman. And he said, wow, becoming a monk looks really difficult. I think I'd prefer to stay, Anuruddha said, I think I'd prefer to stay as a layperson. Mahanama said, okay, well then, in that case, I'm going to have to teach you, because Anuruddha was really, if you remember the story about the nutty cakes, which is a story for another time, I've already told that story, but Anuruddha was incredibly naive. He wasn't stupid, but he was totally naive in the purest sense, and he just had no experience, he had never been had any contact with hardship or difficulty. And so when his mother said there are no cakes, he was confused, and he thought she was saying, all I've got is these nutty cakes, nutty meaning there aren't. And so she said, well, bring me some nutty cakes. And so now he thought, well, looking at how difficult it is to be a monk, it doesn't really look like something I'd be interested in. And so Mahanama sat him down and started explaining to him what he would have to do. Well, first you have to gather the farmers together, and you have to plant the rice, and then you have to grow the rice and take care of it and guard off pests and so on, and water, make sure the irrigation is proper, and then you have to mill the grain, and then you have to store it, and then you have to bring it to the market and sell it. And he went on, and Anuruddha just said, stop. There's no way I'm doing. He was just horrified. He said, there's no way I'm going to do that. Absolutely, becoming a monk is far, far preferable. He couldn't believe the sort of thing. And so it's sort of a refreshing look, because most people are kind of resigned to the fact, well, of course you have to work a 9-to-5 job, but it's nice to have sort of an outside opinion of someone who hasn't done it and thinking, geez, why wouldn't I just become a monk? Kind of refreshing, because people think, oh, how difficult it would be to be a monk. And you don't have to work 9-to-5, that's for sure. And you don't have to do all the things I don't have to put up with so many of the things that lay people put up with. Of course, there are many other challenges, obviously. But Anuruddha, yes, so the point being that he had no wife. He was too young when he ordained. He wasn't, I guess, too young, but he had not a wife, as far as I know. But this was an ex-wife from 3 lives ago, and I'm not sure how they know that, but it's been handed down as how it was. So three lifetimes ago, he had a wife, and she was reborn as a goddess, an angel, Jalini. That's what it says. And she wanted to offer him a robe because he needed the robe, and she thought, well, if I give it to him, he's not going to take it because he's intent upon getting a discarded robe. So she made this wonderful angelic robe and placed it underneath a refuse pile with just the corner sticking out. And Anuruddha was coming along, and he came up to this pile, and he saw the corner, and he pulled it out, and he thought, wow, what a he said, this is indeed a most remarkable refuse heap. And so he took I guess there were more than one. He took the robes out, or the cloths out. It was just cloth, actually. See, and then they would start with cloth, and they would sew the robes themselves. And so that's what he did. He brought it back to the monastery, And all the other monks helped. So they got together in a circle, and it says that everybody got involved with making him a robe. Anuruddha was just so well loved that they all got together, and 500 monks with the Buddha as the head, at the head, and the 80 chief disciples came as well, all for the purpose of no, not all. They didn't all get together, but they were all there. And the Mahakasapa was at the foot of the robe, Sariputta was in the middle, and Ananda was at the head. So these three powerhouse monks were involved. All right, and yes, 500 monks along with the 80 great disciples got involved, spinning out thread to sew with. Right, they actually had to take old robes, I guess, and take some kind of cotton resources to make thread out of. And the Buddha threaded the needle. Mahamoggallana went and got supplies for them because he had magical powers. Anyway, this is the story. It was a big to-do. Everyone got involved with making this set of robes up for Anuruddha, which is an incredible image, of this harmony and cooperation with all these enlightened beings. And the ex-wife, Angel, went off into the city and got everyone to bring food, thinking, oh, there's all these monks and they have to stay together and they have to be busy making the robes, so be good if everyone were to come. So she went in disguised as a human being and got everyone to bring alms to the monastery. But the point of this story and how it relates to our verse is that a problem arose in that there was too much food, which is often what happens with these big celebrations, even in modern times. People get so excited that they bring lots and lots of food, and they really want to do good deeds, and so it's a great thing. But then what inevitably happens is someone complains, and that's what happened here. Turns out there was a great heap of food remaining over after everybody had eaten. It was just, even with 500 monks and 580 monks, just too much food, because everyone was so keen to help, hearing that what a great opportunity to help this auspicious occasion. I mean, maybe it doesn't sound that auspicious, but it's a big deal when a monk gets a new robe and really you're clothing an enlightened being and so on. Not just any monk, it's Anuruddha. He was one of the 80 great disciples of the Buddha. And so there was all this food that was just rotten. It just went bad. And some monks got offended, and they looked at it and they thought, this must be Anuruddha's doing. And they say he must have gone to his kinsmen and told them, hey, bring some food, bring so much food and for everyone. And they said, clearly he didn't think beforehand, and he wasted all this food and kind of took advantage of people's goodwill. It's amazing how people, it's just the same as yesterday, they get so involved with other people's affairs and want to criticize and attack them. And then, so the teacher found out about it, and he called them over and asked them, what are you guys talking about? And they told him, and he said, look, do you have any evidence that Anuruddha did it? And they said, yes. They actually said, yes, we do. No, he said, do you not think that it was brought? He said, do you really think that that Anuruddha ordered this? And they said, yes, of course we think that. And the Buddha scolded them and said, there's no way Anuruddha could do that. There's no way Anuruddha would be so attached. And I guess the implication is that he has some attachment to food. So he was greedy. He wanted special food for all the monks, or he wanted special food for himself. And he didn't understand what was enough. He didn't know what was enough food. His greed overtook him, obviously, because there's no way he could have miscalculated. He must have just gotten so greedy that he wanted extra food. But the truth is he had nothing to do with it. It was the lay people who were just overzealous, and this angel who went out of her way. He didn't even ask, of course, this angel to go and tell people to bring alms. probably would have had everyone go out and get alms themselves. But when the food came, so they ate what they could, and the rest, well, you can't blame them. They didn't ask for it. So then the Buddha taught this verse. He said it couldn't have been. Anuruddha would never have thought such a thing. He had no such greed, no such attachment. And the implication is that he has rid himself of the asavas. He is independent in regards to food. He dwells in selflessness and signlessness. And as a result, and this is it's interesting how it relates here, because it says padang tassa duranayang, which means his track. And here it's interesting because this could refer to his state of mind. So these people are trying to think, Anuruddha was like this, Anuruddha is thinking this. This is what Anuruddha is like. And he said, you guys have no clue. You're not able to tell Anuruddha's train of thought. This is the padang. Pada means his track. Just as you couldn't, if you looked at a bird, if you looked at the sky where a bird had traveled, you wouldn't see which way the bird went. In the same way, you don't know which way Anuruddha is going in his mind. You can't know Anuruddha's mind. It's very difficult. And you people who are set upon criticism, yes, how could you know? He doesn't say that because he's not being critical of them. He's just chastising them and saying, how could you say that about my son? The Buddha would use the word my son for monks who were who enlightened monks, because it wasn't dependent on how long they'd been a monk or so on. He considered that anyone who became enlightened was his son. Through his teaching, if they became enlightened, he would call them his son. So he called Mama Putta, Mama Putto, my son. So the verse is quite similar to yesterday. There's not that much more to talk about. We've talked about food, not being dependent on food, which is, in the sense of being able to even go without it. If no food comes, you sometimes won't eat, and that happens. I mean, it may have been they would just decide, well, we're too busy, we won't even go and get food. So today we'll just all go without food. They might even do that. They might not. But as it often happens, there's no need, because lay people are in touch with the monks, and when they find out and everybody wants to get involved, they think, oh, well, we'll bring food to the monastery. We can do that. We can support in that way. And they would do that. But we have the first part that's a little bit different, right? I guess it's not that much different. What was the first one? Was Sanichayo, who has no hoarding. So yeah, it's quite different. This one is talking about one who has rid oneself of the asava. Asava is an interesting word. It has to do with the sawana, stream. So asava is like the outpourings. Our mind is contained, but it leaks. So asava could be translated as the leaks. How our mind leaks out. It leaks out because it's not contained. Our mind is not stable. Our mind is not calm. So it's like there's an overflowing, there's a rippling of waves, and thus there's a outpouring. It's kind of a symbolic way, or what do you call, metaphoric way of talking about the defilements. But or it's an idiomatic usage of the word. Asava, but used by the Buddha, refers to, the meaning is that, as I said, that defilements are an outflowing. And when you cut those off, your mind is contained. That's the implication. So it means defilements. And by defilements, of course, we mean anything based on greed, based on anger, or based on delusion. So again, it's similar to last week. I'm not sure too much to say. This is obviously the sort of thing that, except that I've realized that the grammar wasn't exact what I was saying yesterday, how I thought that one who doesn't rely upon food is as a result set in the two kinds of liberation. It's more like, not only do you have to be free from, or in addition to being free from reliance or dependence on food, such a person who on top of that is also, or maybe you could say in line with that, is also dedicated to the two kinds of liberation: liberation through emptiness and liberation through signlessness, which means they see it non-self. When they see non-self, that adds to the likelihood that they're not going to cling to food. You know, the idea that I want to feed my body or worry about or concern about the body. When they see impermanence, they will not be worried about or concerned about change. You know, not getting food won't bother them. The pain or the hunger of going without food isn't a deal because they're comfortable with experience as it is. Change doesn't bother them. They're not dependent on one condition. So in our meditation, we're going for a lot of these things. Someone asked me today about how you give up your dependence on food, and really it's like all other questions, the answer is still meditation. When you understand rather than trying to control, you know, rather than trying to force yourself or feel guilty about or get angry at yourself when you want to eat junk food or when you want to eat too much and that kind of thing. You have to change to study it. If it's wrong, well, then I should know it's wrong. If I really knew that it was wrong, then I wouldn't, for any reason, indulge in it. So we have to study. It means that we don't know enough yet. We're not clear in our minds enough, so we still like and want. But when you study, then you see sunyata and you see animitta. And sunyata means it's void of any substance. It's not really a substantial happiness. Animitta means it's not a stable happiness. It can change without sign, without signal or warning. When you see these things, then you give up your attachment. You'll see, well, really it is bad, useless, harmful. And then you'll stop, just naturally. So that's the Dhammapada for today. I think we'll stop there. Thank you for tuning in. Keep practicing and be well. Okay, that's that. There was some crackling going on. Do we have any questions? I think we have a bunch.
We do. Let me just see where to start. Would it be inappropriate if I were to convert some of Bante's videos to MP3 so I can listen to them during my daily commute?
Inappropriate from a copyright perspective or a respect perspective? No, not at all. But there's a question of whether it's appropriate to listen to the Dhamma while commuting. I think if you're driving, someone could potentially argue that, well, you're not paying enough respect to it. But certainly if you're not driving, if you're on a bus or something, I think that's a great way to pass the time. But even when you're driving, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Certainly better than listening to music. So yeah, absolutely. If you know how to do it. Robin, I'm getting this crackling every so often. Do you hear that?
I don't
But I
know.
think it's coming from your end because when I muted you, oh no, that wouldn't make sense. I don't know where it's coming from.
I'm not hearing it.
It's just every so often it goes.
Maybe somebody will mention if they can hear it on air. Is oversleeping intoxicating like overeating? How is it seen in Buddhism?
Oversleeping, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah, intoxicating for sure. I mean, what do we mean by intoxication? We use that word a little bit, but technically we should be precise if we want to talk about dogma and theory. It's addictive, right? You get addicted to the pleasure of lying down. You get addicted to the comfort of sleep, the peacefulness of it. So certainly become addicted to it. And that's an important point to remember, that we don't need the sleep that we think we do. We're just really, really addicted to it, just like food. That's a good point.
Hello, Bante. I am a meditator since almost a year. Sometimes, and not just by meditating, I feel a very strong pain on the top of my stomach, which I think is the body reaction of what is going on in my mind. But the
Hmm.
strange thing is that I've never had this kind of pain before. Is there any explanation for this?
Impermanence. Impermanence is the explanation. Just because it has never happened before doesn't mean it won't happen now. And that's a scary thing. As you see it clearer and clearer, it's going to get kind of scary because it really is. We're really not prepared and we're not that well able to handle such experiences, such changes. It worries us at the very least. So that's what you're experiencing, and eventually you'll become more comfortable with change through the practice.
Bante, how do we break attachment to food?
I was sort of talking about that. I think that was Tim or Wayne. Wayne.
Wayne, yes.
He mentioned that he posted that.
Hello, Bante. What do monks recite after receiving alms?
Honestly, it wasn't that big of a deal to do reciting in the Buddha's time, but they would often recite Ewang Hotu, meaning may. Ewang Hotu is just a very simple way of saying, may it be thus. Because when people offer alms, they would say, um, Venerable Sir, through this offering, I would like to send the merit to this person or that person. I wish for myself to be free from suffering. They would make some determination. Then the monks would say, Ewang Hotu, may it be thus. And that was it. But nowadays they do all sorts of chanting, long chanting. And some monks have been critical of it because they'll start to recite the Buddha's teachings, like from the Dhammapada. And when you're teaching, if the person is sitting down and you're standing up, you break a rule. So you actually should be sitting down if they're sitting down, or they should be standing up, and it gets kind of complicated. And then you're in the middle of the market, and they were saying it's just not an appropriate place to teach the Dhamma. The Buddha would never teach. I don't think that's true, actually, but they would sort of say um, it's not appropriate to teach in that sort of setting, and you should wait till you get back to the monastery. I don't believe that they're totally justified in saying that, but certainly there's a funny story about this. I think we'll come to it in the Dhammapada if we haven't already, where the monks would never give blessings in the beginning. People would give them alms, they'd accept the alms silently and keep walking. And there was another group of ascetics who would always give blessings. And so they started criticizing the Buddhists and saying, look, these guys, they're ungrateful. They don't give any words of thanks or well wishes to the people who give them food. And so they went to the Buddha, and the Buddha said, well, then give a blessing, that's fine. Say something, give your gratitude. And so, okay, then they would give their gratitude. And then another group of ascetics found out about this, and they said, those Buddhist monks giving blessings or expressing their gratitude. Why can't, they're not real ascetics. Real ascetics will stay silent when they give alms. So again, the monks went back to the Buddha, and and the Buddha gave one of the Dhammapada verses and said, uh, they accuse those who stay quiet. They slander those who keep quiet. They slander those who speak. Nobody is natiloke anindito. There's no one in this world who is free from slander. But he never changed it. So, as I understand, the last word was we're to give thanks, express our thanks.
Hello, Bante. How can we face criticism to our practice? Like people saying that meditation is nonsense and doesn't work. I have a person in my family that says that to me, and it makes me quite angry and frustrated.
Sorry, I should be paying attention here. Can you repeat that?
Sure. The person has someone in their family that says that meditation is nonsense and doesn't work. And when the family member says that to them, it makes them angry and frustrated.
Makes our meditator angry and frustrated? No, you should say angry, angry. frustrated. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. It's not really our job to convince others, and as you can see, it doesn't work all that well. If someone thinks meditation is ridiculous, then that's their view. The best way to counter such a view is to show them how it's not ridiculous. But you getting angry is suboptimal, because it's more likely to make them say, see, meditation does nothing. You still get angry all the time. And it shouldn't make you feel doubt the meditation, because it's easy to pick on someone. Yeah, of course I still get angry. I'm not perfect. Geez, to be perfect. But what you will see over time is, if you're mindful, if you practice, people will notice the change in you. If they want to choose to ignore it, well, you can't help everyone. But for the most part, people will have to accept the benefit, the good results. Sometimes they try not to, and sometimes when they have a different idea of what's right, if someone thinks good is being the life of the party, well, then they'll probably dislike the person you've become through meditation. Boring. When I was young, we had this saying, at least we're not boring. Whenever we did anything crazy or something bad happened, we'd say, well, at least we're not boring. Because we did crazy stuff, as most kids do. And now I think if my friends saw me, he got boring. Well, I don't think I'm boring, but I think they would think I'm boring.
Should the tongue be in a specific position during meditation?
The tongue?
The tongue.
Preferably in your mouth. We were joking about this a while. Maybe in your cheek. Tongue in cheek.
I think in Zen recommendations, there's actually a specific way that the tongue is supposed to be held, like pressed to the roof of your mouth or something. I might be saying it wrong, but I think they actually do address that in some other traditions. So,
If your mind is with your tongue, you should note at the tongue. You shouldn't be concerned with the tongue if your mind is focused on the stomach. If your mind goes to the tongue, then you say knowing, or feeling, or however it is.
hello, Bante. It is difficult for me to stay mindful when I speak to my mother. Any advice?
Learn how to stay mindful when you talk to your mother. For sure, that's a very strong relationship we have. Best is to get away and do a course. Take the time to find a place where you can spend a month in meditation and build up well, not build up, but clean out some of the garbage that you have in regards to your mother, so that you can be more objective and more mindful when you see her. It's quite useful. It's harder to do when you're just practicing daily and still in contact with other people.
Does an arahant continue to cycle through the knowledge of insight throughout their lives? If so, does this mean they also experience the characteristics of each insight knowledge?
I don't think so. No.
Sometimes when I meditate, I feel so much happiness and peace that I cannot be mindful. Time goes fast, and when I am aware of my distraction, the bell rings. I was wondering if something can help me because I feel stuck.
Well, why not be mindful of the happiness and the peace? I mean, do you think to say happy, calm, or you just can't even do that? Time goes fast. Well, you should have to learn to catch it early, when you start to feel happy, when you start to feel peaceful. Just like everything else, you have to catch it when it arises. If you like it, you have to say liking.
Dear Bante, what are the proper words to dedicate a good action to a relative that passed away?
It's not about the words, it's about your intention. So whatever words help you pass on, or help you cultivate that intention, that state of mind.
When being mindful, is it necessary to actually say the word of the action you are doing in the mind? Or is it okay to be mindful without actually saying the word?
We don't consider it to be mindfulness in a meditative sense. It's still, you can still be mindful of something in many different ways, but in our tradition, it's not considered to be satipatthana. It's not considered to be meditation. So the mindfulness you create will be weak. You're not really meditating. You might become enlightened, you might not, but it's not going to be nearly um, as straight or as certain, as sure, as honest, as strong. It won't be as strong either. It won't be as profitable.
Something I wonder about when people are concentrating, a lot of times they talk to themselves, or when they need to focus, they talk to themselves. Is that similar? How when people do this at my job all the time. They're really trying to concentrate, and we hear them talking to themselves. And is that similar to the noting, where just it helps you stay focused?
Right, yeah. I mean, it's a kind of a mantra meditation, usually conceptual, but repeating things in your mind gives you that sense of, reifies it, which is sort of what we're doing, reifying it, going over it again, keeps you focused.
What are the characteristics of bad quality meditation as opposed to good quality meditation?
There's three qualities of good meditation. Atapi sampajano satima. Atapi means you have effort. You make the effort to actually say rising, say falling. Sampajano means you know that it's rising, you know that it's falling. The knowledge and the clear awareness. Satima means the actual effort, the actual act of reminding yourself, this is rising, this is falling. That's good quality meditation.
Anything for bad meditation?
Anything that doesn't have those three. If you're lazy, if you're distracted, and if you're reacting as opposed to acknowledging. So if something comes up and you say, this sucks, well, that's bad meditation. Or you say, oh, this is great, no, that's bad meditation. Or if you're just kind of lazy, letting your mind float, or if you're just focused and not aware, not good meditation.
You've gone up on questions.
Okay, let's run before they catch us. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Bante.
Thanks, Robin. Good night.
Good night.